Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 in this best of 3 in between TheMista and GiveUAnxiety. This is Winter Series free from EGC TV. The winner gets the biggest share of a $3,000 prize pool and also some seeding points for a $20,000 EGC Winter Championships later in January. The map is going to be the home map of GiveUAnxiety, and he's going to be playing as the Rus on the right side in red, and also is going to be playing Rus TheMista in blue. So, Rus mirrors on Boulder Bay. A bit of a context to this one. You do not have French available because that has been banned by the players. So, Rus, being a very powerful water civilization, is going to be the civilization of choice for both players. Starting off with a dock immediately is TheMista. Same thing happening for GiveUAnxiety. And you already have the scouts coming out to take down the hunt. So, there is a couple of decision points over here. Because the first thing that's very different with a Rus mirror compared to a land map on Boulder Bay is that you won't have a hunting cabin. This is because you want to drop that dock as fast as possible and you want to have fishing ships out, so you won't really be able to afford an otherwise very expensive hunting cabin. And because of this, you won't be making a ton of scouts in Dark Age. So usually the players will have one or at maximum 2 scouts unless someone goes crazy and starts spamming scouts from the town center, but every scout that you make on the town center is going to be one less villager working for you. So as you see, right now you only have 1 scout here. This obviously slows down the bounty collection quite a bit, and since you have a limited amount of hunt anyways over here, and this map is not really famous for having dozens of wolves, usually the players will be getting to that tier 1 bounty. If you're very lucky, you can get to tier 2, but don't expect a ton of bounty for the players to start with. Looks like we are going to have 105 right now for TheMista, and on the other side, you're going to have 125 for GiveUAnxiety, so head-to-head in that department. And now, I have to point out that this map generation is just absolutely horrendous here for GiveUAnxiety. Look at the spawn of the deep fish. It's very far away from GiveUAnxiety's docks and kind of close to TheMista. Unlucky map spawn, I would say, for GiveUAnxiety. He is pretty unlucky with this one. Now, one thing to note is that, technically speaking, the Rus could sail out and take this one because they don't have to come back to the dock and drop it off. But this still isn't going to help GiveUAnxiety because the problem is that if you have your fishing ships here, your opponent's combat ships will come from this side and they will just kill you much easier because it's much more difficult to protect your fishing eco in the middle of the pond compared to being right next to your dock. So as things stand, it looks like GiveUAnxiety is going to be on shorefish as opposed to his opponent being on deep fish, which obviously gives a food eco advantage over GiveUAnxiety for TheMista. 160 bounty for GUA, and you have 155 for TheMista, so very, very similar in that regard. The next question is how many sheep you can acquire for yourself, because that can also give you some gold to work with on the bounty. As you see, there's only 1 scout for the GiveUAnxiety, and he has 1 sheep trailing him. On the other side, you have dozens of sheep coming in here for TheMista though, so he has to be pretty happy with that. That is 40 gold also trailing him, because every sheep gives you 5 gold for killing it with the bounty system, and also, as the tooltip suggests, for killing the sheep, you are considered a monster by the game. Currently, 4 Lodya fishing ships out for TheMista, and on the other side, you do have 4 as well for GiveUAnxiety. Looks like TheMista comes in and tries to intercept that villager that was doing shore fishing nearby. Looks like GiveUAnxiety should be able to get back home. On the other side, the scout of GUA might attempt to do the exact same thing. One thing to note though is that TheMista has spotted these Lodya fishing ships right next to the shoreline. At this point, TheMista knows very well that his opponent is going for shore fishing instead of deep fishing with his fishing ships. Looks like the Golden Gate is coming in for both players right now, slightly faster for GiveUAnxiety, and that could give him some momentum on this map. You see he's already pulling his fishing boats, and that's going to help him start pushing the fishing eco of his opponent. TheMista is also pushing his fish up, and you see he's sailing all the way around here. He probably knows that his opponent is going to be up a tiny bit faster, and now GiveUAnxiety is going to be like, where are they? He's going to start converting his fishing ships into combat ships. As you see, he has just pressed the button. Very nice move for him to be able to afford all 3 of those. Other side, you're also going to have a couple of combat ships coming in, and I love this move from Mista. You don't have to drop off the fish with the Rus, so might as well hide these fishing ships in here while you wait for the opponent, or while you wait for feudal age, and then just drop off all the fish, and then convert them to combat ships. That's a nice little touch. The problem for TheMista is that he's very slow to feudal age compared to his opponent, and you already have 1 attack ship here pushing those fishing boats, and The thing is that the fishing boats are fairly fragile. You see, just a couple of volleys of arrows from the Lloydia attack ships will sink them. So by the time you convert these to combat ships, most of them will be destroyed. You also have TheMista trying to burn down this dock, but with some combat ships out here for GiveUAnxiety, he should be able to repel the attack. Mista is still unable to convert his fishing boats into combat ships, and it looks like the fishing eco of Mista is going to be sunk here without any kind of retaliation. The dock is slowly going down for GUA, but keep in mind that at this point... Ooh, wait a minute. Nice little touch here for TheMista. He tried to hide one fishing ship that was weak in that mist, but it failed. Looks like he's gonna get away with one on the right side and one sailing south that's being pursued by 2 combat ships. Even just having one fishing ship survive is something that's nice for Mista, because he can just sneakily fish over here, and I think that's exactly what he's gonna do. The fishing ships don't have to return back home for a ruse, so it makes some sense to just try and hide some over here. Mista still trying to burn down this dog, but as you see, there is a next Lloydia attack ship coming in, and that should discourage the scouts from any kind of further aggression. As things stand, the water is under the control of GiveUAnxiety. Now the question is how much he's getting out of this one, because it's one thing that you win the water, it's a different thing how much fishing eco you can build up on it, because there is still a couple of combat ships here for TheMista. As expected, the Lloydia attack ship pops out for GUA, and that should keep the dock alive for the time being. On the Golden Gate, you will be able to sell your excess food for gold or wood if you need to, so you can get some more resources to produce combat ships. And as things stand, looks like Mista won't really be able to get a couple more combat ships out, because even though the dock takes quite a lot of time to be destroyed with just archer ships, at the end of the day, the biggest problem for you is that the moment your combat ships spawn, it's gonna be outnumbered 3-1. You see, GiveUAnxiety spots the hunting cabin here, so GUA now knows that his opponent is forced to take hunt, which is obviously not ideal, especially given the fact that 3 of these carcasses are right next to the shoreline, so one Lloydia attack ship could just sail up here and deny 3 carcasses out here. GiveUAnxiety getting a second dock up, he's now going to switch on the afterburners, going for a couple of more fishing ships. As things stand though, he has to be careful not to lose his scout over here to the villagers, which will ultimately happen, resulting in 2 sheep also being donated to TheMista. Looks like the scouts will find this Lloydia attack ship over here. One of the scouts for TheMista goes down. The second scout could also go down over here, but it's going to be sheltered by that stealth forest. So for now, the scout will survive, and that's pretty important for TheMista, because keeping that scout alive means that he knows what GiveUAnxiety is coming up with on land. If this scout goes down, Mista will have no idea when he's going to get pushed by GiveUAnxiety. Looking at the resource banks, now you see a decent amount of food banked up for GiveUAnxiety. He's also mining a ton of gold, so he's getting closer and closer to that all-important castle age. Mista, on the other hand, slightly faster to castle over here, so I would expect him to start popping out some horse archers, because he's getting up to castle age a little faster than his opponent. And remember, GiveUAnxiety did lose his own scout, so he's not going to be able to spot that one. Abbey of Eternity coming in here for TheMista. He wants to go for those relics, which have spawned in the favor of GiveUAnxiety, so as much as the fish spawn was terrible for GUA, the relic spawn is much better for him than it is for his opponent. All 3 neutral relics on his side, as compared to GiveUAnxiety, or as compared to Mista, who has just none on this side. On this map, you always have 1 relic spawning in behind each player, and you have 3 in between them, and all 3 of those are on the side of GiveUAnxiety at this point. GUA is slowly taking that dock down. You see, there's a sneaky dock attempted here by TheMista. In fact, the second one is also being built. He tried to sneak a couple of fishing ships out here, and you see, he's trying to hide them. That's the magic of the ruse here. You don't have to drop off the food, so you can just hide them in one corner and keep fishing. Castle Age almost in here for TheMista. For GiveUAnxiety, he's also rushing up his abbey with 10 villagers, so he's not going to have a massive deficit going into Castle Age. Looks like GiveUAnxiety yoinks 1 sheep from the back of that scout out there. So one thing to talk about is that it's one thing that you have water control like GiveUAnxiety has, but ultimately, these hybrid maps come down to how much you're getting out of that water. So if TheMista is able to have some decent fishing eco set up over here, hidden in one corner, and GiveUAnxiety doesn't notice that, then ultimately the winner on the water is GiveUAnxiety. But his opponent is gonna have just as good of a fishing eco as he does, so you gotta be careful with that if you're GUA. you constantly want to patrol these waters and see if there is any sneaky fishing ships working against you. Horse archers is the plan for the Mista here. He's coming up with the archer range. Whereas on the other side, bows will be built by GiveUA. He knows exactly that his opponent will have to push him on land, as we have a demolition ship coming out here, sinking 2 combat vessels. From GiveUA, demolition ships definitely can start swinging the battle back in the favor of the Mista. But this dock is already burning. You still want to keep attacking it if you're GiveUA, because otherwise your opponent will be able to pull a villager and repair it. Second demolition ship coming out as planned, and there's probably going to be a couple more coming down south as well. I would expect GiveUAnxiety to start adding some demos as well. Try and destroy those docks before a couple more combat ships come out. And it looks like this dock will be just alive enough to get another demolition ship out. You see the demo is trying to head towards the fishing eco of the opponent, but upon seeing that he's not going to have that chance, he's just going to detonate itself, sinking one, damaging another ship, but ultimately not causing that much chaos on the water. First horse archer out as well for GiveUAnxiety, so the two players are going to play identical unit compositions, but obviously GiveUA's food economy is just much better at this point. Looking at the relic situation, you already have one warrior monk moving out for the Mista, and he has one relic already coming in. Whereas on the other side, you have one relic in already for GiveUAnxiety. He started with the one at the back of his base, and he's just now heading out for the ones on the north. No combat ships coming out from Mista from either of these docks. He's getting a couple of fishing ships out, though. He has some fishing boats working for him, but not a ton at this point, so he's not going to get that much from the water. Was already coming up here for GiveUA. And as things stand, I would expect GiveUA to fall behind in relic numbers, because I think this one was yoinked by the Mista. Mista has already one garrisoned inside here and one being brought back, so he's going to have 3 relics as opposed to the 2 of GiveUA. So one way that GiveUA can compensate for that is by making a transport, grabbing a warrior monk, and then sending it to this island. That would be very nice. Also, on this map, I've mentioned this a million times, and most of the casters and even some pro players agree on this one, but for whatever reason, we're not seeing this very often. Usually, you would like to see some trade ships on the water. Every single trade ship returns like 150-200 gold per trip to this neutral trading post. So if you have water control, that's definitely something that you can invest into, because that can help in the long run quite a bit. A couple of combat ships clashing over here in the north. Looks like we have GiveUAnxiety slowly crawling up with the horse archers. Same thing for the Mista, but the Mista is playing wide open, and GiveUAnxiety for now is playing fully walled. Looks like these docks will be taken down, and there is going to be just no combat ships coming out, so no more demos for the Mista out here. Sacred Side being taken by GiveUAnxiety, but as things stand, the army of the Mista is greater, so GiveUA will retreat for the time being. Still 3 fishing boats working over here, and you see, you can convert those existing fishing boats into demolition ships, and that's exactly what the Mista is thinking about. Makes a demolition ship, and he could easily sink a couple of fishing ships here. That's a clever idea, because you might get more from a single demolition ship than you get from a single fishing ship at this point. And a demolition ship trickling in every once in a while could cause a lot of chaos. You see, there is 3 fishing boats over here for GiveUAnxiety. The Mista is coming in with a demo, but he wasn't really caring about those fishing ships, and ultimately, he's just going to ignore them, giving a chance for GiveUAnxiety to split up. This could have been a great chance for the Mista, but I don't think that he's lived up to the expectations out there. He was probably microing his horse archers, so that's the reason why. Ultimately, he's gonna get pushed back, but the demolition ship is still there, coming in, trying to get some damage done, maybe trying to blast his way through these walls and open up that space. Or try to lure the enemy army close to the sea and just sink them. There is also a chance to take this dock down because this is heavily damaged, but looks like this demolition ship is just going on a little bit of a cruise, not really caring about anything at this point. Notably, GiveUAnxiety does have some fishing eco, but it's quite minimal compared to the food economy of the Mista, so as weird as it looks like, right now the Mista's got a better food eco. Obviously part of that is the hunt, so once that's depleted, that's gonna be a little more problematic for the Mista. But as things stand, the fishing eco is probably not so impactful for GiveUAnxiety. What's more impactful though is the warrior monks coming out here for the Mista, and you see, GiveUAnxiety does have the fish, but he still went out to take the hunt, which might ultimately prove to be a bad decision, as many of those villagers might fall here to the horse archers. Looks like there was at least 1 or 2 casualties. Lumberjacks will also be harassed quite heavily, so now GiveUAnxiety is gonna have to regroup. I still think that he needs to leverage water control a little bit more, because despite the fact that he's got massive water control, he doesn't have a decisive eco advantage. The wood line has been overchopped, so you gotta be very careful here, because if you leave that hole open, Mista can also run in. As things stand, Mista has 3 relics and the sacred site under his control as well. Docks still standing for both, and you see some demolition ships still alive for Mista, so he can still look to get some damage done with those demos, but so far they weren't super impactful. The demolition ship coming out here for the Mista. He's trying to sink that attack ship out here, I do believe. Oh, not doing anything. Not doing anything in the word. The most peaceful moment of Age of Empires 4, ladies and gentlemen. Demolition ship. May I ask you to do something with your life? Okay, I will take a no. Horse archers right now planning to clash in the middle. You get 1 extra attack upgrade for GiveUAnxiety over his opponent, but there's a couple of warrior monks for the Mista, and those will trigger the Stain's blessing for all those horse archers. So once again, I feel like GiveUAnxiety moved out low prematurely, and his horse archer numbers were just not satisfactory. Going back down south, it looks like the demolition ship finally decided to make up his mind and sunk that combat ship out here, which gives the Mista a chance to reclaim water, because so far GUA wasn't really finishing off those docks. He now has a good food eco from fishing, but this is the window that the Mista was looking for. A chance to get a couple of combat ships out and start sinking the fishing eco of his opponent. And the moment those fishing ships are sunk, there is going to be a decisive eco lead for Mista, because he's got 1 extra lake over his opponent, he's got 1 sacred site as well, as opposed to 0. He managed to kill a boar as well, so now he's up to 355 bounty, which is tier 2, as opposed to GiveUAnxiety, who I think is still in tier 1. Yep. GiveUAnxiety is still in tier 1, his opponent is at tier 2, so that's also a 5% extra food getter rate for the Mista over here. Not much, but it's honest work. Looks like horse archers are still part of the plan here for GUA. Boyar's Fortitude coming in here, and that could be a nice power spike to have right now for him. Let's see if the Mista is also grabbing that. Not yet, he's just not grabbing the attack upgrades, but looking at the Mista with all that gold in the bank, he could afford that, and indeed, he's going for Boyar's Fortitude as we speak. Attack ship coming in now to start sinking the fishing eco of GiveUAnxiety, and the moment the fishing eco goes down, GUA is in trouble, because ultimately he's got no map control. So the only thing that's keeping him in this game right now is water control. He doesn't have Boyar's Fortitude in just yet, and I did mention that overchopping that wood line could result in the enemy army flooding in. Villagers are just getting caught in the crossfire, and I'm not sure if this was just a misclick from GUA, but at this point, Mista is probably just happy to let those horse archers do whatever they want, even if all of them will be killed in this battle, because so many villagers could go down from GiveUAnxiety. The upgrade is still not finished for GUA, and that's the biggest problem. Boyar's Fortitude, now it's done, but basically there were not a single horse archer left, and with that, GiveUAnxiety taps out. Ultimately, he had water control, but he could never really leverage that, and the Mista just moves in with a superior force of horse archers, had the relic advantage, had the advantage when it comes to sacred sites as well, and he just took better fights. So, because at the end of the day, it comes down to this KD, 72 to 48. If you look at the military counts, every single fight that he took was way more efficient, especially if you look at this one, for example. Mista barely losing forces, whereas GiveUAnxiety losing a lot more. So that was part of the equation, and that was done by Mista with a better economy, which is just very surprising given how good the fishing eco was for GiveUAnxiety. So I'm suspecting that there could have been some villager production issues, because if you look at this graph, GUA was behind in terms of villagers. This doesn't show the fishing ships, this graph, so this is pure villager count if I'm not mistaken. So there was a considerable villager advantage from Mista, mostly resulting from this gap here. So it very much seemed like GiveUAnxiety. Remember that he was able to convert many of his fishing ships into combat ships so fast. He was able to get up to feudal age really fast. What I'm suspecting is that he pulled all his food villagers into wood and gold, so he can win the water and then compensate for this villager deficit with fishing eco. But it took so much time for him to build up his fishing eco, it was harassed so much, that ultimately he wasn't really able to capitalize on that, and he wasn't really able to cut into this villager deficit. So at the end of the day, he had a 1,000 less food gathered. Obviously, the tier 2 bounty, the hunting for Mista helps, and if Mista ran out of hunt and started to add some farming eco, then this would have swung back in the favor of GiveUAnxiety. But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that Mista was able to hunt for so long, and GiveUAnxiety didn't have time to have his fishing